Hi everyone, and welcome to Principles of Chemistry. This is Mrs. Hutchinson. For those of you that don't actually know my legal name as Hutchinson, my name prior to that was Chapa. That was my maiden name. I'm kind of stuck. So you can call me whatever it is that you feel comfortable, whether that's Mrs. Hutchinson or Chapa or whatever, or a combination of the two, say Chapa the Hutch. You can call me whatever it is that you would like, that you are comfortable with, as long as it is appropriate. So what we're going to discuss today would be our Principles of Chemistry syllabus. What is expected of you throughout this course? Prior to getting into that, though, let's discuss a little bit about chemistry. It's a collection of ideas that are used to organize and explain the world around us. It's a very practical science. In other words, if you have used any piece of technology as a prime example lately, you have used chemistry. Principles of Chemistry is a half-year course that contains about 40% of the Regents chemistry curriculum, and this course will provide you with an introduction to chemistry, the scientific method, and of course scientific writing. The way that we're going to accomplish this is through several different types of labs, whether it's demonstration labs or hands-on labs, and of course student projects themselves. The pace of this course is going to be slower, because it's going to allow for increased understanding of the chemicals and mathematics that Principles of Chemistry will require. The goal of this course would be to provide you with a needed science credit for graduation, or to provide a stepping stone so that if you wish to take Regents Chemistry, you'll be more equipped to do so next year. Class materials. To be successful in this class, you'll have to bring the following materials: a 3-ring binder every single day. We're going to be taking notes. It's a relatively big 3-ring binder because I will provide you with all of those notes. An agenda or a calendar or your cell phone to write down assignments to remind you when you have things due. You will always need a pen or a pencil, something to write with, and a scientific calculator, because those of you that are are thinking about going to Regents Chemistry, in Regents Chemistry, you're not allowed to use a graphing calculator. Therefore, why not get used to doing all of our calculations using a scientific calculator? Now, assume that I do not have a calculator to loan you. Now, calculators that are acceptable would be any scientific one, not your cell phone. You are not allowed to use your cell phone in this course as a calculator. If you don't have one, you'll have to do the calculations in your head. You're not allowed to share calculators during a test or a quiz, so please bring them every single day. Grading. Here's how grading works. We deal with a weighted average in this particular course. What that means is if we look at all of these percentages here, they're not equal. So exams and projects, they're worth 35%. Labs are worth 30%, quizzes are worth 25%, and homework is actually worth 10%. Now, how does this actually work? Participation or homework is actually pretty simple. All you have to do is attempt it, is complete it. I'm going to go around and I'm going to walk around the class, see who has their homework completed, and you will either get 100 or a 50% or a 0%. 100 means that you've attempted all of it. 50% means you've attempted at least half of it, and 0 means that you haven't attempted any of it or less than half. Those are the only grades that you can get for homework. Pretty simple, pretty self-explanatory. In order to receive local credit for this course, you have to have a final grade of at least 65, including your final exam grade and your midterm. So make sure that you're studying up for these exams. Late work. I don't do well with late work, just so you know. So my first tip would be, don't be late and be on time. Also, tests or quizzes taken more than 2 days after an absence will be zeros in the gradebook. We'll get to our absence policy in a minute. So please make sure that you read through this syllabus so you are aware as to what the policies are. Late homework will not be accepted as it is discussed in class on the day that it is due. So you can't try and turn it in late because we've already talked about it. Labs that are handed in late will receive the following penalties. In other words, Late labs will automatically lose 50% regardless of how late the lab is turned in. If it's turned in a day late, if it's turned in a month late, it will lose 50%. Of course, there is definitely a cutoff for me. Typically, it's about 2 weeks. Anything over 2 weeks, you will get a 0 for that particular lab. Extra credit. You will not be offered any extra credit in Principles of Chemistry. Basically, what that means is I'm not going to give you an opportunity to make up for a test or a quiz that you did not study for. Study for it first, and you should be fine. Here's the lab policy. Pretty simple. Lab reports must be done in class and handed in 2 school days after completing the lab. In other words, if we start a lab and complete it on a Monday, that lab will be due the following Wednesday. Please make sure that you hand it in within the first 5 minutes of class, or else it will be considered late. If you lose your lab, you must redo the entire lab procedure and questions prior to handing it in. Copying a lab partner's data or answers is not allowed because, well, copying will get you a 0 in this particular course. Giving your lab to someone in order for them to copy it will result in both of you redoing the entire lab and both of you receiving a 0 on that lab when it is turned in. So, just do your own work and you won't have to deal with that. This is a higher level science. So as this be resulting in a higher level science, you have to have a higher level order of thinking. In other words, you have to be able to utilize correct grammar and spelling. Do not use any of that text messaging abbreviation stuff. It doesn't work for this course. Your labs must contain complete sentences unless I explicitly tell you otherwise. And your labs must be written in blue or black ink. Of course, if we're doing a graphical portion or a table, you can use a pencil. If your report contains a significant amount of discrepancies regarding the 3 bullets that we just talked about, I can take off as many points as I feel necessary. And occasionally we're going to write a formal lab. Instructions on how to do this will be given in class. And these types of reports will take a lot of time, so we'll probably have an extended period to work on them. Lab rules, pretty simple. Some of the labs in this course are actually dangerous and they require your utmost attention. What this means is that you have to follow all of the rules that are given before the start of each lab. Number 1 rule is safety. We will have an entire lecture on safety, and if you're not abiding by any of those safety rules, you will be asked to leave the particular lab. Here are some of the basic ones, though. No food allowed in the room. You do not want to ingest any chemicals whatsoever, so if you are a person that needs to eat in this particular classroom, you need to go outside and eat them in the hallway or put it away. You must wear closed-toed shoes. What that means is that you're not allowed to wear sandals. Reason being, say we're working with a strong acid or a strong base, you accidentally drip a little bit, it lands on the top of your shoe. Wearing a closed-toed shoe, you can take that shoe off relatively quickly. Wearing a sandal, that drip is going to land right on your foot. And what that's going to do instantly is burn your foot as opposed to your shoe. Not really, it's not easy to take the skin off of your foot, but it's pretty easy to take the shoe off of your foot and save your foot from being burned. So please wear closed-toed shoes. Long hair has to be pulled back because we are going to be dealing with Bunsen burners. They're open flames. If you lean over an open flame, your hair is going to go up in flames, which is not an ideal situation. Also, you have to wear safety glasses. I know they look a little ridiculous, but I'd rather look ridiculous for 40 minutes than walk around for the rest of my life not seeing well out of one or both of my eyes because I splashed a chemical into my eye. So please look ridiculous for 40 minutes, save your eyes. Also, inappropriate behavior will not be tolerated. So some of the behavior that can pop up in labs would be throwing equipment or not listening to directions. If I see that you didn't listen to directions and are mixing chemicals that I explicitly said not to mix, you will be asked to leave that particular lab. So the first offense would be removal from that lab and a lunch detention to make up the lab. I think that's pretty fair. Second one is removal from the lab, a write-up, and I will call your parent or guardian, and of course a lunch detention to make up that missed lab. And the third offense, we're going to have a sit-down little chat with our principal. I know it says Mrs. Hawk, but whoever our new principal is, we will discuss the further consequences with the principal and figure out what it is we're going to have to do, because I cannot tolerate safety issues in the actual lab itself. My top priority is maintaining safety and keeping everyone safe from harm. Course outline, here it is, pretty simple. We have about 7, I'd like to get through 7 topics. Sometimes we don't get through all 7, it all depends on the course, but this is my ideal course, so you can review that. Academic honesty. I expect any work that's submitted to me to be a representation of what the student knows and understands. In other words, if you hand something to me, it should have been completed by you and no one else. I encourage people to work together on assignments, but this does not mean that blatant copying is accepted, especially on lab reports. It's your responsibility to be sure that you understand the difference, and if you have a question, you should discuss it with me before handing in your assignment. The penalty for handing in work that is not your own would be a 0 on that assignment, a notification to your parents, meaning I will call them, and a note not only in my file, but a note in the school's file, so everyone around the school will also know what had taken place in my classroom. I'm a firm believer in the fact that you can only hurt yourself, but I realize that students do not often understand the meaning of this. In other words, by cheating, you not only damage your own reputation and character, but it also can come back to haunt you in ways that you may never have anticipated. So please, do your own work. Do not copy. If you copy, how are you expected to understand that material when it comes to test or quiz time? Attendance. Attendance is extremely important for you to achieve your maximum success in this particular course. If you are absent, you're going to have some trouble understanding the material because you have missed that particular material. However, I do understand that people get sick and that things come up, doctor's appointment and what have you. So, if you know that you're going to be absent beforehand, please talk to me so we can get you the material that you need so that you will not be missing any of that material. If you are sick, please talk to me as soon as you get back into school. Now, here are some general guidelines. It is your responsibility to find out the work you missed during an absence and to make it up in a timely fashion. In other words, I am not going to chase you down. You are going to come to me and say, what did I miss yesterday? I will tell you once you ask that question. If you missed a lab or a test or a quiz and you fail to make it up, those become 0s because it's your responsibility to make up the missed work during your absence. If you're absent from school during a lab period, you have to make arrangements to make up that time that you missed after school with me. If you are absent on the day of a test or a quiz, you should be prepared to take that test or quiz on the first day that you return. In other words, if you're one of those people that frequents missing test or quiz days, it's not going to help you because you're going to have to come in and take it on the first day that you return anyway. So just show up if you're not sick. In most cases, your test or quiz should be made up no later than 2 days after you return. If you have a homework or a lab report that was due on the day that you were absent, you have to hand it in on the first day that you return at the beginning of the class period, or else those become 0s. If you expect to miss a class for, say, a musical lesson or a different school-sponsored activity, say a field trip or something, you should inform me before that class that you'll be missing, and I can get you the assignments that you will need. Generally, I expect you to work within these deadlines after an absence. However, if you attempt to make alternate arrangements with me before the 2-day deadline, it's likely I will provide an extension for you if there's a good reason. You should be advised, however, that as the number of your total absences increases, the likelihood that I will grant an extension for you decreases. So the more times you're absent, the less likely I am to be generous with these deadlines. Classroom rules, pretty simple. Respect yourself and others, be on time, be engaged in activities, and follow all safety rules. Consequences for not abiding by these rules, well, verbal warning first, then a removal from the classroom, and a phone conference with the parents, and a referral. Of course, if your actions are more serious, we may have to skip to other consequences right away. Availability. I'm available before school at 7 a.m. Typically, I get there between 7 and 7:15, and typically I don't leave school until after 4 o'clock. So you can make arrangements to meet me between 7 and 8 or between 3 and 4. My typical schedule is that I have first period prep and ninth period prep. I'm not sure what it's going to be this year. We'll have to wait until those schedules come out, but I will let you know. Parent portal. Your parents can have access to all of your grades. All they have to do is contact the guidance office to get their username and password, and that'll allow them to monitor your grades throughout the course. What I want you to do now is take this sheet of paper home and have your parents sign it, and then you want to return it on the day that it is due. Please make sure that they have read through the entire syllabus, because I don't want parents calling me and saying, why did my child lose 50% credit on their lab? It was just, it was a day late. It wasn't that big of a deal. Well, read through the syllabus and you'll see that that is, in fact, the lab policy. So, make sure that you bring this home. Your parents not only sign it, but read through it and detach it at the line and turn it in. What I want you to work on now would be this particular article. Where would we be without chemistry? So I want you to read through the article and complete the associated worksheet. As you are reading through this article, you will be answering the questions as you come to them. Now, this last part here is kind of important. You'll notice in the article itself that there are different sections. In 4 to 6 sentences, describe the important role that the science of chemistry plays as described in each section of the article in your own words. Be sure to provide a specific example of how chemists and their discoveries contribute to the advancement of society in each section of the article. So basically, what you're going to be reading in this particular article is how chemistry and chemists have affected today's society. That's what I want you to summarize in this particular article. So, I hope you enjoyed this particular introduction. I can't wait to enjoy the rest of the year with you guys, and I will see you for our next video.